we are just 41 days from Election Day, and the race between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris is still pretty close there. There are a lot of dueling polls showing how tight the race is. But things could change and change rapidly. Let's bring in former Trump campaign aide and author of the book Wicked Game, Rick Gates, and also former Trump spokeswoman Liz Harrington. Pleasure to have you both with us.
Good to see you.
All right, so Kamala Harris is going to be in Pittsburgh today. We just had a live update there talking about her economic plans. She's going to have this very friendly interview with Stephanie Ruhle from MSNBC. We'll put up this poll here of recent wins in battleground states. So it's very, very tight. The more she's shielded by the media and the more Donald Trump does his events, like we see in North Carolina, talking about jobs, how do you think that that will kind of calculate the independent voters? I'll start with you, Rick.
Yeah, I think, look, you look at the recent New York Times poll that they put out on, several key states. I think it shows that Donald Trump is starting to regain some of that momentum that, people thought he might have lost. And I think it's coming at the expense to Kamala Harris at key voter demographics, independents, blacks and Latinos primarily. So I think as we look at the electoral map, what I'm looking at is kind of moving away from the polls and starting to look at that early voting data, because that's the real tangible for us in terms of how we're going to measure whether we're doing well in a state or not. And so far, when I'm looking at Pennsylvania, even Virginia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Republicans are doing pretty well right now. Obviously, still a few more days to go in terms of when early voting can take place. But that is a key metric, I think, that people need to start looking for and maybe moving away from the polls, because I still think there's a lot of issues with the polls out there right now.
I think a lot of people would agree, whether it be sampling or and whatnot. And Liz, to that point, what Rick was just talking about, we looked at North Carolina and Pennsylvania and the number of Democratic ballots for the early voting mail-in. It's dramatically lower than 2020. And Kamala's campaign, they're aware of that. And at this point, this is where it's at. She's going to continue to go out there and still be shielded. And they're just hoping that they can sort of, still run on joy and vibes when people can't afford groceries?
Exactly. The joy is gone. It's been gone. It never actually was there. I mean, the propaganda in all of these polls, to Rick's point, this is a person whose favorability was in the 30s, and yet they've tried to resurrect it and manufacture some sort of support for her when it just doesn't exist. They have to bus people into her events. She had to have a teleprompter for an interview with Oprah. I mean, this is someone who's certainly not even capable of running for office, let alone being in it. So I think that people clearly see that, and nothing she can say, nothing the media can say. That's why she's so desperate to ask for another debate. Nothing they can say can change the reality of what people are feeling every time they go to the grocery, every time they fill up the pump, every time they turn on the TV, look at the real news of what crime has done and what the open border has done, and
let's talk
World War III on the horizon. So none of those facts change, and they're all losers for this corrupt regime.
I have a minute left. I'm going to give you each 30 seconds. They're going to go to the border in Arizona, and they're going to try to say that, they're going to try to spin it. But, as a woman, she's going to be out there talking about, what about the child trafficking? What about all the women that are raped and murdered, the innocent women here in the United States? I mean, this is just a disastrous idea, I think, but I'll give you each 30 seconds to weigh in. Rick, first to you, then Liz.
Yeah, I think it's really going to be difficult for her to take the high ground on any of this. I mean, she's got a track record of 3.5, actually more years on, allowing illegal immigration. So I think it's going to be really hard for her. Changing her position on fracking is one thing. Changing on immigration is completely different. What I enjoy is watching local media a lot, because you see how the local people feel. And if you go and look at those people in Arizona, in California, Texas, others, they are all aware of the problems with the immigration. I don't think Kamala Harris has enough time to change people's opinions of what she has done to destroy the border.
Yeah, and what they've caused, the issues here, national security, the list goes on and on. Liz?
She could start deporting the over 20 million people they've let in. She won't do that. Of course she won't. She's had 3.5 years, her and Joe Biden, to do anything on the border. All they had to do was leave President Trump's secure policies in place. Instead, they opened the floodgates, and they're destroying our country.
That's it. Liz Harrington, Rick Gates, appreciate you both. Thanks so much for being with us right here today on Newsline.
Great to see you.
you.